Hey, Deserver listeners. So, Ashley from Love is Blind went on the Vile Files podcast with Nick Vile to talk about various aspects of being on the show, including Tyler and the kids. And so I thought we would watch her statements here and her answers to the questions. Nick usually asks pretty good questions. So let's watch. My name is Dr. Kirk Honda. I'm a therapist and a professor. And keep in mind that everything that I'm reacting to is based on what people are telling us. And I don't judge as a therapist, but as a citizen, as a non-therapist, outside of my profession, of course, I have human reactions and feelings.
Then, fast forward, we have that minor, conversation to where I'm truly hurt and just want to give the viewers a little glimpse at what I know to some capacity. And then they show us again, when it's dark and we're having another conversation. And I ask him, do they know what you look like? And he says, oh, well, I don't think so.
Not that I know. Pauses, looks to his left, and then goes,
tell. That's a tell. You know, people have tells. It's a tell.
I don't.
Immediately, I knew. Yeah. Immediately.
I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't think.
Immediately. What does hell does think mean? Right? So immediately from there, when he says that, I knew. So that evening, we had another conversation.
Okay, so it sounds like what Ashley is saying, and it sounds credible, that she and him had a conversation off camera initially that was fairly brief, it sounds like, with minimal information, because I was wondering what all she knew prior to the scene that we saw on the show. Then they had the recording, and in the reunion, she said that she wanted to have it filmed because she wanted to make sure that some of the information was out there, because she was worried that people would pick up on her energy, which I don't know if that's necessarily true. I don't blame her for having that thought, and maybe that is true. I don't know. But to me, it seems like it wouldn't be that hard to just act normal without just, talking about it. Because the question is, if they were talking about it off camera, shouldn't they have strategized and said, we should maybe think about not talking about this in front of the cameras, because then all the fans will start sleuthing and looking into this, and that could harm the kids. It could harm the mother of the kids, Bree, who didn't ask to be on a reality television show. So that's the allegation, or that's the accusation. And it sounds like from Ashley's perspective, she's saying that, well, I had to, because otherwise it would have been picked up on in the edit. And, who knows, but it's possible that it was not fully thought through, or they had other motivations to have it on camera, to disclose that to the world, and then retrospectively thought, oh, we probably should have some justification for it. I don't know. It's purely speculative, but it just raises some questions. And I suppose ethics regarding not only for cast members, which I'm sure a lot of cast members will think about without much guidance, right? And maybe we should give them guidance, but also ethics regarding reality TV show producers. But anyway, she's also saying that they had the initial conversation, which sounds like from her story right now, there's very little information. They had the conversation on camera because she's saying that when he said, I don't know if they have seen me or if they know what I look like. And she says in that moment, she knew he was lying. And she says that he had eye movements or something, some body language indication that he was lying. That is nonsense. I don't blame Ashley for believing that. The internet and TikTok is filled with misinformation and lies about body language and detecting lies. It's funny that TikTok and the internet is filled with lies about how to detect lies. We in psychology have studied it for decades, if not more than a century, because wouldn't it be nice and useful, helpful to have a tool like that, or guidelines for interrogation or crime or trials, that sort of thing, or just for psychotherapy in general. We have tried and tried and tried, and there just isn't any ability to do that. So I just want to say that, but she's saying that she intuited or surmised or guessed that he was lying in the moment, which tells us that that initial conversation was extremely brief, because if at that point she didn't know if the kids knew what he looked like, then that would be there was barely any information that was given to her. And then she's saying that they had another conversation afterwards in which, let's see.
And that's the conversation that I learned it all.
So then she says, that's the conversation in which I learned it all. But what's it all? Is that all? Is that the truth? Or are there lies sprinkled in there? Is it spun in some way?
Are you trying to juggle between what you need and want to know while simultaneously trying to respect his privacy?
Yeah, and even my mom was just like, this is a very sticky situation, Ashley. So how you guys approach it needs to be, right? Because she's like, they will taunt these kids in this family if they want more, more information. And I'm like, yeah, but at the same time, if it does come out and I don't talk about it, they'll think I'm shocked, which they end up thinking, I don't know, like why they think I wouldn't know this. But regardless, I felt it had to be said in a way. Yeah. So it was hard for me to navigate. I'm just so used to being very transparent that it was hard for me to navigate that conversation too, to try to make sure I didn't divulge anything.
Yeah, I don't know. I could see a situation where Ashley is in the middle of being filmed for a reality TV show a year ago, and she is in love and planning on getting married. And then all of a sudden this information comes out and she doesn't know what to do. It sounds like she didn't stay in their apartment for at least a night to think, or she was upset or something. And in the moment, she's thinking, this information needs to be out there, and I don't want to be stuck in a situation where I am called out. I want to make sure that people, I could see her thinking, when the show airs and this information is out there, I want to make sure that people understand that I didn't know about it and that I had an extreme reaction to it, and then had that seen. But her thoughts and feelings and her position on the matter is still evolving. And then later she says, well, and then she gets married, and then later she's thinking, well, maybe that wasn't such a great idea. We could have just not had that scene. So then you start figuring out how to justify it either to yourself or to the world or something, because it just seems like this whole thing could have been avoided. And you just wonder what other kinds of things were avoided by cast members who just didn't talk about it on camera. You would imagine there's a fair amount of things like that. And in this case, you could argue that maybe that would have been best for the kids, right?
He said, there are three of them as a lesbian couple, whatever. Offline, he shows me pictures. That was more questions for me. Mm-hmm. And as I began to talk to him, his friends, his mom, and his family, is when I began to get a fuller picture of what was actually going on. And that's when I found out that, the ex-wife had left and Tyler stepped in, which the ex-wife's name is on the son's birth certificate.
Okay, so she's getting into the specifics, and all that information is consistent with what Bree said.
I've never seen the twins' birth certificate. And when the ex-wife left,
Okay, so she's saying, I've never seen the twins' birth certificate, I think meaning that she knows that there are questions or allegations that his name is on the birth certificate of the twins, which would make him much more of a dad than of a family friend. So I think she's saying that, which maybe she'll get into it, but you would think that she would say, well, since he lied straight up to me in the pods and up until the point that he disclosed what the situation was, at least from his perspective, he is demonstrating that he can lie fairly easily about this topic. And let me talk about this just from the outset, that there are a lot of reasons and conceptualizations as to why someone would lie about this that don't have anything to do with psychopathy or antisocial personality or narcissism. The internet assumes this sort of thing, that he's a con artist or that he's a pathological liar, and he could be, we don't know, we're just watching a reality TV show. But there's a lot greater likelihood that his lying, if he's lying at all, well, we know at the very least from him, we know that he lied, right? He lied by omission, and that is huge. Lying by omission is not like a minor lie. It's a major lie. And that needs to be understood, that when you don't tell someone extremely relevant information that you know they want to know, then you're lying by omission. It's lying. It's straight up and we call it lying by omission, but it's just straight up lying. Plus, they had overt conversations about, do you have kids, and this sort of thing. So he would have lied in that moment too, and he admitted that. So the fact that he lied about that makes you wonder if he's continuing to lie. The question is, why would he lie about it? And I think, given what we've seen, he talked about in an interview that his single mom was very stressed out and never said that she loved him. And she was a good mom and she provided, and Tyler really admires her and respects her and thanks her for that. But he will say that she never said that she loved him. And I think that's the tip of the iceberg in terms of the amount of warmth and the quality of the attachment. And therefore, he will say, as an adult, he was desperate for love. And when one is desperate for love, then we will put aside other priorities to get that. And I could imagine that wherever, for whatever reason he got to that point when he's on the show and he's talking to Ashley in the pods and he's falling in love and he wants her approval and he wants to marry her and spend the rest of his life with her, that he has values and he has empathy and he doesn't tend to lie in general. But when it comes to this topic, because he has learned or he intuits from society that if he discloses this in a truthful way, that he won't be given a chance to get what he desperately needs, which is love and approval. You could even argue that he's looking for a mother in a lot of ways. A lot of us are doing this through our spousal romantic relationships. It's not pathological to do that. One could say that we're all doing that to some extent. We're trying to make up for the deficits of our attachments with our parents through our spousal romantic marital relationships. So he was doing that maybe a lot more so than others. And therefore, when it came to that why in the road, the several whys in the road of just like, okay, do I tell her this and risk her never wanting to be with me and maybe I'll never find love ever? Or I'll just continue to go down this road and say, I'll tell her later, that kind of thing. And that makes sense to me. I don't know if that's a viable conceptualization, but if he is capable of that, then he's capable of that throughout. It's not like he suddenly healed all of those wounds in the last year. And therefore, as he gives information on the show and beyond, he, if this is accurate or near the ballpark, then he would have motivation to continue to spin and to continue to put the priority of not only just telling Ashley the whole truth because he would risk losing her, but also the rejection of the kids to begin with. That's the main question here, is if the kids are viably considered his children, then how could he possibly reject those kids? And what personality trait or what defense would be at play that could involve that? And that's where the internet will assume that he's a psychopath and a con artist and a pathological liar in general. And again, he might be, but in all likelihood, that's not the case. Generally speaking, those individuals are rare. It's much more common to have someone who does have empathy, does have compassion, does have values about this sort of thing, and will engage in defenses to attain something that they think that they won't attain otherwise. And that will all result in them going against their general values, which could involve actually rejecting his kids, rejecting Bree, and spinning, i.e. lying to Ashley.
Left, she was pregnant with the twins. And Tyler grew up without a father. His father's like dying of bone cancer. He wasn't even invited to our wedding. And Tyler's like, when I gave my sperm, I gave it to a family, not for you to be a single mom. And that's when he jumped in. And for me, I guess the reason that it was easier for me to understand once talking to friends and him and,
All right, so that's consistent with what we heard from Bree, that the wife left and he felt bad, so he stepped in. The way, I just wonder what sort of timeline, because from Bree we heard that the children, the twins, the second and the third child were a result of Tyler and Bree having sex. So I wonder if Ashley knows that.
Going deeper is going deeper.
Yeah.
Is my godbrother's gay. He was in my wedding. He was a bridesman. And, at one point when I didn't know how my life was going, we laughed and joked about it. I could never do that. I could never donate my eggs to a close person because if it comes out looking like me or something, I couldn't be around.
Right.
Whereas Tyler did. He was around for holidays. And for me, that's how my godbrother is. He's at every holiday, everything with me. So he was around, he let them call it. They knew him as their bio dad. And it's very taboo and very odd to think about, but I don't think there's any rule book to how.
Okay, so this is all lining up with what Bree Thomas said in those posts, that the kids knew him as father and might be calling him father. We saw pictures. We don't know if they're doctored. They didn't look doctored. That he has shirts on, various shirts that say dad. And then she says what she was saying at the reunion, which is that there's no rule book. And that's all true. But there is a general rule book, so to speak, when it comes to children and their identified family members, right? Even if you say, well, he's sort of dad, but not really dad. I mean, the kids call him dad, but they don't see the word dad or the role of father to be someone that's going to be there all the time, because maybe Bree was thinking, I'll get remarried and there'll be a 2-parent household and dad will be more like family friend or uncle or something. Yeah, sure. But the role, the establishment of the relationship was there. And from what Bree told us, he hasn't had contact with the kids at all over the past year. So if the role wasn't strictly dad, or we don't know exactly where to fit his role, okay, but surely we understand that just whatever role he had, to abandon the kids, why do that? If it's all innocent, if everything's fine, then why not tell Ashley while the show is being filmed about the situation? And then the two of them, Ashley included, would say, well, surely you're going to continue your relationship, whatever that is, because everything's on the up and up. And I don't know, maybe they'll claim that happened.
It's not even just the woman, but the kids. And I know she wanted him to mainly be a part for the boy. Mainly, not even the girl. You very rarely see him with the girls here and there. It's mainly the boy. And Tyler stepped up and he was like, sure, I'll be their dad. He's like picking up from daycare sometimes. Like, they're friends. They lived in the same building.
Yeah.
They lived in the same building on top of that.
When you tell the story.
Okay, so they lived in the same building. Bree said that they lived together. So I wonder if that's somewhat of a debatable claim. But Bree didn't say, the way that Bree talked in her posts, it didn't come across as though she was spinning very much. But who knows? Who knows? This is all what Ashley has been told by Tyler and Tyler's family, which I'm guessing Tyler's family mostly knows what Tyler told his family. She's saying that he was mostly a dad role or some kind of family friend role with the son, not the daughters. And he was supposed to be a father or some kind of family friend for the first kid. And I wonder what's going on with that. Girls don't need 2 parents, or girls don't deserve it, or an overemphasis on having a positive male role. So presumably that was at least part of it, right? That Tyler wants to be a positive male role model in the boy's life. Okay. So then you don't abandon. I don't know. As a therapist, I am not going to judge. I would be tasked, if I was a therapist involved with the situation, whoever it was that was hiring me, I would be there to help. I wouldn't be there to judge. But as a citizen and as a therapist who's treated a lot of people who've been abandoned by their caregivers, I'm here to tell you that there are negative consequences to this potentially. I don't know. We don't know. But anyway, All right, so I want to pause here and say that the rest of this episode will just be for members of the channel, but I want to tell you something, that I'm recording this after having watched a lot of the various different interviews and a lot of the various different posts, and I ended up recording almost 3 hours of content related to the story. I didn't think I would do that. I thought that what I would end up recording would be, 40 minutes, and that would be a long episode. But I say all this because in this series, I'm going to be talking about how I was intending on this being just one episode, because I thought, I don't want to bother the viewers with a bunch of episodes about this one topic. But it gets so complicated, and there's just so much detail and so many jumping off points that I end up making 3 hours. So I don't know how many episodes I'm going to make, but this is going to be a fair amount of episodes. Every episode, I guess I'll just make a choice right now and say that I will make 4 episodes that will be about 45 minutes each. So that's what this series is, and this is the very beginning of this series. I don't know this yet. I'm only about 15, 20 minutes into this series as you're watching. So buckle up and join the channel to watch the rest of this if you want to, and take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.